Hello and welcome back to this channel Comic Books. Today, we will be doing a recap of a DC Universe visual novel called Superman Red Son. Red Son is a 3-issue prestige format comic book miniseries published by DC Comics that was released under their Elseworlds imprint in 2003. Author Mark Millar created the comic with the premise: what if Superman had been raised in the Soviet Union? It received critical acclaim and was nominated for the 2004 Eisner Award for Best Limited Series. The story mixes alternate versions of DC superheroes with alternate reality versions of real political figures such as Joseph Stalin and John F. Kennedy. The series spans approximately 1953 to 2001, save for a futuristic epilogue. In Red Son, Superman's rocket ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm rather than in Kansas, an implied reason being a small time difference from the original timeline, meaning Earth's rotation placed Ukraine in the ship's path instead of Kansas. Instead of fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, Superman is described in Soviet radio broadcasts as the champion of the common worker who fights a never-ending battle for Stalin, socialism, and the international expansion of the Warsaw Pact. His secret identity is a state secret. Chapter 1. The story begins in the 1950s. The Soviet Union unveils its newest asset, Superman, upsetting the Cold War and turning the nuclear arms race into a super-being arms race. At this point, Superman is a newcomer in Stalin's inner circle. Having grown up in Ukraine, he's kind-hearted and just but also dedicated to the cause of communism. When possible, he spends his time detecting and preventing accidents and disasters around the USSR. The sudden revelation of a superpowered alien committed to the Soviet Union causes panic in the United States. President Dwight D. Eisenhower is forced to contract Lex Luthor, a brilliant scientist at the employ of Star Labs and a super genius who is very well aware of his intellect and has very little regard for lesser minds. Luthor is married to Lois Lane. At the behest of his CIA contact, Agent Olsen, he begins his first attempt to destroy Superman. Spurred from reading news articles about Superman's altruistic heroism and the launch of the Sputnik 2 satellite, Luthor concocts a plan to cause Sputnik 2 to plummet toward Metropolis. As Luthor predicted, Superman arrives in time to divert its course. In the process, he meets Lois, and though there is immediate romantic tension between them, they do not pursue their mutual attraction as Lois is married. The satellite is retrieved by the United States government, and Luthor retrieves Superman's genetic material found on it to create a clone of Superman. Meanwhile, Superman meets Wonder Woman at a diplomatic party where Stalin is hosting an alliance with Paradise Island. Diana becomes rather smitten by Superman, but he is forced to leave when he spots Pyotr Roslov, chief of the NKVD and Stalin's illegitimate son, who is drunk and extremely disgruntled. Pyotr is angry at everything, especially at Superman, whose arrival has rewritten the Soviet Union's power structure and turned his father's attention away from him, putting a stop to his chances of advancement. Having had to shoot a dissident couple before their own son's eyes for allegedly printing anti-Superman propaganda, Pyotr snapped and arranged Stalin's poisoning, which in turn has caused him horrible guilt, though not enough to confess. Stalin dies from cyanide poisoning and left the Soviet leadership voided. The Communist Party begged Superman to fill in as Stalin's successor, but Superman initially refused because he sees himself as unqualified for being born with privileges and therefore runs in complete contradiction to the communist ideology. While Superman was distracted by Stalin's death, America and its allies have taken steps to contain Soviet expansionism by increasing their nuclear stockpiles in Western Europe. This is then followed by the completion of Luthor's clone, dubbed Superman 2. But the clone is physically monstrous and imperfect, and is met with embarrassment from Eisenhower and privately disparaged by his handlers as a bizarro thing. The U.S. government dispatched Superman 2 to engage with his counterpart over the English Channel. Their duel is inconclusive on its own but causes collateral damage and deaths in London and an accidental nuclear missile launch from an American submarine. The clone, which has been made too much like Superman, sacrifices himself to divert the missile into space and save millions of lives in the process. Despite the Superman clone's death, Luthor is more horrified at the implication that Superman is more intelligent than himself after losing a chess game to the clone on the night before the clone's deployment. Luthor resigns from Star Labs, murdering his research staff, and founds Luthor Corp, dedicating his life to destroying Superman. He also temporarily divorces Lois, which he planned given that his new goal will damage their marriage. Lois is nigh abandoned and privately longs for Superman. After Stalin's state funeral, Superman tries to dismiss any interest in politics or leading the party. But a chance meeting with Lana Lazarenko, his childhood flame, changes things entirely. Seeing the suffering of Lana and her children and others waiting on a breadline for food, Superman realizes that his powers could be used for the greater good and assumes leadership of the country to transform it into a utopia. Chapter 2. It is the 1970s, and the world of Red Son has diverged greatly from our own. John F. Kennedy is President of the United States, having replaced the tragically slain Richard Nixon, who won the 1960 election but was assassinated in 1963. Luthor has devised and executed several plans to thwart Superman, none of which have worked. Only the United States and Chile remain independent from the Soviets, and both are on the brink of collapse, while President Kennedy is forced to grant independence to Georgia. The Superman-led Soviet Union has grown without resorting to war and has virtually eliminated poverty, disease, and the like, but this has started to infringe on individual liberties, and Superman is fast becoming a big brother-like figure. A brain surgery technique that turns dissidents into obedient drones, or Superman robots, is in use. Wonder Woman and Superman have now become a duo, using their superpowers to save lives in addition to their ambassadorial and governing duties. Wonder Woman has fallen for Superman, but he sees her simply as a comrade and is cheerfully oblivious to her love for him. Lois Luthor succeeds Perry White as the editor-in-chief of a failing Daily Planet, while her estranged husband feverishly works on his obsession. Luthor plans to shrink Moscow, but this fails when Brainiac, his assistant, shrinks Stalingrad instead. Superman intervenes and retrieves both Brainiac's central unit and the tiny city, putting an end to the Brainiac-Luthor cooperation, although he is unable to restore Stalingrad and its inhabitants to their proper size. This becomes his one failure, and a source of great guilt. Luthor's second plan involves Batman, who is revealed as the boy Piotr orphaned early in the story. Now a grown man and the head of an anarchistic terrorist network that sees the abundance forced upon the people by Superman's system as little more than oppression. Their persistent success in avoiding capture is a thorn in Superman's side. Batman joins forces with LexCorp and with his parents' killer, Piotr, now head of the KGB and consumed by jealousy of Superman, to attempt a coup. They capture Wonder Woman and use her as bait for Superman, hoping to sap his powers with rays that imitate the light of Superman's native sun. The plan works, but Wonder Woman breaks free and rescues Superman, although the process seriously injures her, snapping something inside her and causing her hair to turn instantly white. Batman commits suicide to avoid capture, but not before revealing to Superman that Piotr had a role in the plot. Piotr is then turned into a Superman robot. As the part ends, Luthor's third plan begins, when Luthor is given a mysterious Green Lantern found in an alien ship that crashed at Roswell. Batman has become a martyr for his cause, Brainiac is reprogrammed into Superman's aid, and the construction of a version of the Fortress of Solitude, here located in Siberia, and referred to as the Winter Palace, begins. The stage is set for the finale. Chapter 3. It is the year 2000, and the global Soviet Union encompasses all countries except for Chile and the United States of America, which has undergone a disastrous civil war. Within the Soviet sphere of influence, there is no crime, no poverty, no unemployment, and no choice. The Superman brain operation is a common punishment for dissent. Superman is committed to winning the argument with the US and repeatedly refuses Brainiac's suggestions of an invasion. His sole failure remains Stalingrad, which is ravaged by a green microscopic organism bearing resemblance to a sheep louse. Luthor runs for and wins the American presidency. Using his massive economic capital and dictatorial powers, he returns prosperity to the country. He remains as asocial as ever, though, and this is only a part of a larger plan to provoke Superman into invading America so that Superman can be destroyed. He confronts Superman in the Siberian Winter Palace. In a seemingly anticlimactic moment, Brainiac yanks Luthor deep into the recesses of the fortress to be surgically turned into yet another Superman robot. Superman agrees that his hand has been forced and prepares to attack. Superman takes on the East Coast, confronting and defeating the Green Lantern Marine Corps, which is led by Colonel Hal Jordan, and featuring Privates Scott, Stewart, Rayner, and Gardner. He defeats the Amazon forces commanded by a highly disillusioned Wonder Woman, and a collection of super menaces that Luthor has put together over the years. Brainiac's spaceship cuts the U.S. Pacific Fleet to pieces, and the two super beings meet at the White House, where Lois Luthor waits with the last weapon, a small note written by Lex that manages to break the Comrade of Steel's resolve. It reads, "Why don't you just put the whole world in a bottle, Superman?" Superman orders Brainiac to end the invasion, and the robot reveals that he is not as reprogrammed as everyone thought, attacking Superman while boasting that eventually the entire universe will hum to his battery. He is shut down by Luthor, who evaded surgery during the invasion, and is destroyed by Superman. This triggers a fail-safe self-destruct, and as the singularities powering Brainiac's ship threaten to explode, Superman rockets it into outer space, where it blows up. The Earth is saved, but Superman is caught in an explosion which is said to have a kill radius of 15 million miles. The Soviet Union falls into chaos and is transformed by the Batman. Lex Luthor goes on to integrate many of Superman's ideas into the new philosophy of Lutherism. This becomes the defining moment for mankind's future as it enters an unprecedented age of peace and stability. A benevolent world government is formed and maintained, and Luthor presides over a string of scientific achievements, including the cure of all known diseases and the colonization of the solar system. Lex Luthor lives for over 2,000 years. At his funeral, it is revealed that Superman survived and is immortal. Now permanently retired from public view, he goes on to describe Luthor's descendants, culminating in Jor-El, whose intellect exceeded that of even his beloved ancestor. It is revealed that Earth is being torn apart by tidal stresses from its sun. Jor-El and his wife send their infant son rocketing back into the past. The final panels of the comic book depict the landing of Kal-El's Times in a Ukrainian collective in 1938, effectively causing a predestination paradox. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.